Okay, looks like we're good to go. Okay, so Annette, we'll summarize. Do you want me to go through the questions, or do you want to do that? Is it easier if I do the questions and you type?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
For me, it would be.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out where I'm trying to find the questions here. Hold on.
No problem.
Where did they go? All right. Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, probably should do that.
I'm Annette Moore.
I'm Melanie Christensen.
I'm Megan Doucette.
I'm Tiffany Duty.
Okay, so you ready, Annette?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question was, having completed the book, how has your understanding and perception increased on the process of international policy and law?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was just surprised at how biased the process is.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I just thought, gosh, there's people that have power and they get their thoughts and their ideas across, and it may not represent everybody, but it's just kind of that whoever shouts the loudest wins. And
yeah,
I was surprised.
whoever has the most people.
A lot of it has to do with wording too. The ambiguous wording can be used to the opposition's advantage. So I thought that was interesting. And then he also, like when they wanted to make changes to it to make sure that that didn't happen, they couldn't make big changes. They had to do just like 1 or 2 words, or nobody would accept it. So I thought that was interesting too.
I was also surprised at the intimidation that was used. When people don't agree with them, how that, the Women's Caucus in particular were so intimidating. They were not tolerant at all of ideas that differed from theirs.
Yeah, for sure.
I also thought it was interesting that it said even if we don't ratify the document, it still influences a lot of our policies and laws and stuff. So I thought that was fascinating too. And so that's why he's like, pay attention to what you're doing, because even if people don't accept it and you aren't enforcing it, it still impacts them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing, along with that is we might not accept it now, but it's in that document that people are going to review, maybe a few years from now. And because it's in the UN document and maybe that seems like a trustworthy source, then I think it's much easier to bring it in and make it part of the law.
Yeah.
The other thing that shocked me too is because he talked about because it was done by consensus, like the countries weren't like really going on record as agreeing or disagreeing. So it was interesting that he talked about, I think it was President Clinton, he said, and did the like the National Marriage Act or whatever, and then on the other side he's sitting there, and from Washington they were going against this, they wanted the exact wording, and so I was like, oh my gosh, in the private sector where the people aren't involved, he's fighting for one thing, and then back home he's fighting for another. So it's like very two-sided. So it makes me want to get more involved and understand what's going on at the UN level.
Mhm. Yeah.
I was surprised on that too. He's all like, oh yeah, our president's totally supporting us, and then he finds out that that's not the case. I'm trying to find it in here, but I was just like, my goodness, I can't believe. I mean, I can believe, but I don't want to believe that our society is so two-faced.
Yeah, I think it's kind of scary. I'm glad that we had this opportunity to read the book and to study, because there's a lot that I wasn't aware of. And, I think I'll look at things differently, or I might do some background research on things that, new policy and things that we hear about. I think I'll be far more likely to want to research it. Okay, any other thoughts on that first question? Okay, so what role did you see the Lord playing in Professor Wilkins' efforts to advocate for the families of the world? What lesson did you learn for your own efforts?
I mean, he had far more opportunities to speak than he probably would have.
Yeah, that's what I thought of too. Just the doors that were opened and, just how the Spirit testified to him that he was going to speak. And he was
Yeah.
able to just put his faith in that.
And what to say, too. I thought it was interesting that there was that African delegate put in that position, too, that he was able to get him that tryout. So I think that was, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the Lord's hand, just making those doors open along the way as long as he had the faith. I loved how he brought in, like, the whole Jonah thing. So I thought
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I also thought it was interesting that his wife was the one who put the proclamation in his briefcase and said, "Here, I think you should take this." I think that was another way that the Lord had a hand in this.
Yeah.
Another way too is I think that he already had theatrical background. So if he was not even, I mean, he was a lawyer, but he also had the theatrical background to make people want to listen to him as he's speaking because he could use that. It wasn't something boring when he was speaking up there. He mentions that in the book about that he, he would have been nervous if he hadn't have had that.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool too that as they were sitting there and had that guy trying to train him, and he told him you need to make it more interesting and stuff. He basically said, I don't need to change it, and it was interesting because I think truth speaks to people. You know what I mean? Like we have so much power in truth that we don't have to add lies or try to make it interesting. I mean, stories do help. We can help the people identify with us, but not in the fact that we need to spin story. I don't know how to describe it, but I thought that was interesting too. If we just stick to the truth, then the Spirit can testify, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that was really evident when he only had that 4 minutes to speak. He just really didn't have time for a lot of storytelling. Just, here are the points, and I need to lay them out quickly. And I think, again, the Spirit helped him in that regard because he wasn't worried that he only had 4 minutes. He knew exactly what he needed to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so even though the book was largely about Richard Wilkins' experience, what important supporting roles did you see others playing in this account? And why is it important to recognize this?
I think that Heavenly Father uses many hands to make this happen. And his friend that called him and said, "You need to come to this." And he's all like, "Wait, I already have plans. My wife and I are going to do this whole, thing together." And how she convinced him to come. I think that's part of the Lord's work right there.
Yeah.
It's at the very beginning.
There was also the delegate and the United Families and all those different things. I think it just kind of shows that it takes a team to fight this evil. We can't just do it alone. And then also that we can all help, because that's a big thing. Like I keep thinking that, oh, I'm just one person. But just one person can make a difference if we're all combining into a team. I thought that's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah, I wrote down that I thought his wife was probably his greatest supporting role. How often he called her during that process when he was stressed out and didn't know what to do. And I thought it was interesting that she was so important to him and such a support to him. And then he had the women's caucus who were following him around and basically telling him that men are oppressing women, and yet he was relying on his wife. She was his equal and his partner, and I just thought that he couldn't have really done it without her support.
Well, that one lady who was giving him the background on the whole. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but the one lady who was telling him about that lady who had one of the biggest influences on the UN.
Oh, yeah. In here they said they put several conversations together. But that one lady that was giving him the background of that lady's. What was that?
Is it the lady he kind of just had a chance encounter with? And she.
Yeah, that he was talking to, and she was giving the background on the women's caucus and how it got started by this one lady, and how she has
Yeah.
millions of dollars.
Yeah, and she gave grants and scholarships and
I can't
different
remember her
things.
name.
I can't either.
I'm trying to find it.
That reminds me, though, the opposition even helped at one point, like when the lady was talking about how that definition of the family hasn't been used since like 1949 or whatever. They ended up going back and finding that and using that, so even the opposition helped.
Yeah.
That's true. So I guess the second question is, why is it important to recognize the supporting roles? I think it's kind of what you were saying, Tiffany. You know, it feels like one person can't do anything, but they really can, because once you start to speak, then these supporting roles kind of help and support and get behind you. And so I think it is important to recognize all the little things that were happening to him along the way, that there was support and people were stepping up behind him, and he wasn't really alone. You know, and I think that gives us a little bit of courage when we speak out, that sometimes it just takes that first person to start it, and then maybe other people who are too nervous to speak up, but, you know, might get on board when somebody takes that first step.
Well, it makes me think, too, of that story. I'm trying to think, who was it? Was it Elijah? Where they were in the mountain, they were surrounded by the guards and everything, and the servant was scared. And he said, those that are with us are greater than that are with them. And I don't know, and then his eyes were open, he could see all the angels round about them helping them. And I think of that, too, that we have, the power of good is so much greater. So even if we're just one person, we have so many people on the other side, and then we also have people that are waiting for the truth, that want to hear it. So as soon as we speak up, we get that, you know, that we can get that support and stuff, even though Satan's doing everything he can to stop it. The good is still going to win out in the end. Even if it doesn't seem like it sometimes, even if it seems like we're losing, we still will in the end.
And I think along with what you just said, you know, when Richard Wilkins was speaking, and I can't remember what country the guy was from, but he said, "Where have you been?" You know, because nobody was speaking and saying these things, but there were people in the audience who agreed that this isn't what they hear there. And so I think, you know, people do recognize that truth, and people want that truth. So sometimes it just takes that one person to start it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the next question is, ponder your readings from a sacred duty. What are some consequences and risks of minimizing or eliminating family and religion from public policy?
Well, if we don't have religion or families that we're worrying about when we're writing these policies, things like same-sex marriage and abortion stuff, I mean, there's nothing to really fight them. If we're not worried about the destruction of the family, then it just, you know, why wouldn't it make sense for people to do whatever they want, or, you know what I mean? Or if we're not worried about the sanctity of life, then why would we care about abortion, or, you know, things like that? So I think if you take those factors out, then it's very difficult to make, you know, have a reason not to have those things be part of our laws.
Yeah, we kind of lose our moral compass if we're not focused on families.
I think that if we lose the idea of the sanctity of life, then it's just like there's not going to be another generation. It's just going to end.
Yeah, that's true.
There might be a few, you know, but it's not really much, not enough to sustain.
They're already finding, like, a lot of these countries are not producing self-sustaining numbers anymore because people just aren't having children anymore.
Yeah.
Did we look at that in this class? I can't remember.
No, it was in another class that we looked at it up in. depopulating.
Yeah. We did read something in this class about, wasn't it, about the Asian, how they all want males and how the males are going to outnumber the females.
One child policy.
Yeah. And they tend to get rid of the females because they want a son to carry on the line. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to see huge problems in our society if that just becomes the norm or, accepted.
Well, it is a huge problem right now because there's a lot of homosexuality in the Chinese population because of that. There's not enough women to go around.
Yeah. So it kind of creates other problems.
I can't remember. Was it this class where we talked about too I think it was this class where we talked about how I can't even remember who it was like. Oh, I can't remember now. But he talked about how like we're not the people feeding into the system for like Medicare and stuff like that are like there's like 3 people feeding for every person, whereas it used to be like 27 or something like that used to feed into the system for those that were retiring and stuff.
Yeah, it was this class that we don't have enough to help sustain for like Social Security.
Yeah.
The other thought that I had about one of the consequences is just weakened societies. I mean, our societies are as strong as the families that live in them, and if we just kind of neglect to create laws and policies that protect the family, I think we're just going to see a breakdown in our society.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody have any other different thoughts on that? Okay, so the next one, based on a sacred duty, what do you think we can do about it? Does the author implicitly or explicitly make realistic suggestions for ordinary citizens as well as those in a position of power and influence? Provide examples.
I think understand what we're up against, maybe. Like, understand different policies that are being put into place, just things like that.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
We can, what I put down was like we can support groups like the United Families International and like different groups that are fighting for the family. We can be more, like you said, be more aware of the international policies and how they can harm families. But I think once we understand that, we have to educate others and let other people know like where they can get this information. And the one I think was it last week where they were talking about how that document would impact parents and stuff like that. They encouraged them to actually go and find out for themselves, and they told them, here's the information, go find out for yourselves. And I think that's kind of like the gospel too, is that we tell people, this is the truth, this is what we believe, but go find out for yourself. So I think that's important when we're advocating for the family. Also just letting people know what we believe and know what's truth, and then also if you can help financially, help financially. But I think a lot of us may not be in a position to do so. But
the first thing that came to mind when I read that was his friend, I think it was his friend Susan, who said, we need to do something. And that was that little phrase just kind of stuck in his head. And I think that we need to kind of keep that in the back of our mind, too, that we can't just sit back and not do something. And I agree with what you guys said. I had a lot of that on my mind, too, as I read that. But the other one I had is that we can put some pressure on our leaders to enact laws that we feel good about. We can use our voice in that direction, too, writing our senators and, just putting pressure on them, the way the opposition is, try to speak up and get things done that we would like to see happen.
It's so easy these days too to even put on like a public like thing online where people can actually sign a petition online. So it's easy that way too. Like if you're writing a congressman or something like that, to have those petitions and send it. It's so much easier now.
Yeah, it's a great point. The other thing I just thought was study the proclamation. I think we really need to know that 100% so that we are more aware of things that are against it.
Yeah.
We just have no question. This is what we need to stand for.
That's a great point.
I think it's also good to have like knowledge to back up what we believe, like not religious, but more like secular. So like we can defend.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we do have to continue to study and continue to be aware of what the research is saying and be able to back up those gospel truths. I think that's a great point. Okay, let's see. Is that the last one?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it was. Okay, that was quick and easy today.
I'm pretty excited. I really like the ending of this. When he goes and he sees them worshiping, and he sees that rug with the tree, and he realizes, you know what, we're all the same. We're all Heavenly Father's children. And we all, it made me feel at the end of the book when they did that, I just felt like, no matter what religion you are, as long as you're all striving, we're all striving to be better and to, help our families, and I don't know.
well, and what stood out to me from that too was that if it's just one religion trying to fight for it, it's not as effective as if we combine with all these different religions that are all fighting for the exact same thing and find that commonality instead of viewing them as like, oh, that's a different side. We're on the same side. Even if we have different
Yeah,
religious beliefs, that belief is the same.
Yeah, I had a thought as you were saying that too. Something that stood out to me too at the end was how much he needed the Sabbath day. He talked about taking that as a day of rest. And as I was reading that, I thought, it really is important that not only are we fighting for these things, but we're living our lives righteously too. I think that's when we qualify to have the Lord back us up. And so I think it's important that we, on a personal level, that we're trying to live as righteously as we can.
Yeah.
Does anyone know if that group that he created is still thriving?
I don't know. That'd be an interesting thing to research.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, what was it called? It was like the I don't know. I need to go back and look at it. I forgot to write it down.
Okay.
Director of the NGO Family Voice.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
The NGO Family Voice, the World Family Policy Center. On the back it said, he's written numerous articles on the Constitution law and is the director of the NGO Family Voice for the World Family Policy. What was NGO? I forgot what NGO is.
Non-government official or something like that. Does that sound right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I was sad, though, to learn that all of the stuff that he fought for in this one, that the next one that came up, it had none of it.
I know, that seems so discouraging.
All of this stuff, like he totally didn't sleep for days, and then to have all of this work be for nothing because I wasn't quite sure why they decided it wasn't. They decided the Istanbul conference wasn't. You remember about that?
Yeah, I can't remember can't remember exactly the details, but I do remember it saying that everything they'd fought for wasn't in there, or it was almost like they had to start over or something like that.
I think they were just choosing to ignore it or something, is my understanding.
Yeah. I mean, they felt like they had won a huge victory, and then at the end it wasn't. Well, it could, it was a victory because the other one didn't get as far as they wanted, the other side didn't get as far as they wanted to get on it, but it would just be disheartening.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you saw how hard he worked and the toll that it took on him.
Mm-hmm.
So I found NGO voice, but not NGO family voice. I think they may be different because when it shows the members, the United States is not listed.
Oh, okay.
I'm not finding the other. And they said they created a website, I thought, so maybe it's not. That's interesting. On the page, though, it mentions that there's a humanitarian summit in Istanbul. Not just barely
Here?
happened to me. Huh?
Oh, this year?
Yep.
Oh.
That's interesting. What kind of? I mean, it's a humanitarian summit, but still, I thought that's interesting that it's going back to Istanbul.
All right.
I lost you guys. There you are.
Hiding.
All right. Should we do a summary? Hopefully I can
Okay.
get this right here. Let's see. Where did it go? Okay. All right. The first question was, having completed the book, how has your understanding and perception increased on the process of international policy and law? We were saying whoever shouts the loudest gets the most airtime on that. But they use ambiguous. There's also ambiguous language that's said in the document. The women's caucus is used as intimidation to get their policy. What role did you see the Lord playing in Professor Wilkinson's efforts to advocate for families of the world? What lessons did you learn in your own efforts? For your own efforts, we said that his wife was one of the ones that was the most influential on him. She was the one that put the proclamation in his backpack to begin with. She was the person that he called when he was feeling overwhelmed, and when all these women's caucus were saying that men were bad and everything, and they didn't trust women, that he would always be going to his wife for support. And we talked about the Jonah theme, and let's see here. And then when he spoke of truth, and that truth can testifies of our spirit, testifies that it's true if we talk of truth. And when he was only given, and he knew he was going to speak, even though everyone was saying that he wasn't, but he knew he was going to have time to speak. And he knew that he had 4 minutes, and he knew what he wanted to say. He didn't have time for all this stories, but he knew what he needed to say out there. Let's see here. Even though the book was largely about Richard Wilkinson's experience, what important supporting roles did you see others playing in this account? Why was it important to recognize this? That the Lord has many hands in this, and that people, even small efforts help. The delegate the delegates and the United Families, that initial mistake when he went to sign in was one thing that helped out. His wife again, the women's conference, the women caucus, fighting him actually was one thing also that we felt like it was an important supporting role. And even the people that were helping him in the background, letting him know the behind the stories of different things. Why is it important one person can help make a change? There are people wanting to help. Those are with us are greater. Oh, we talked about that scripture about when the servant was scared, and the prophet said, those that are with us are greater than with them. Let's see here. Ponder your readings from the sacred duty. What are some consequences and risks of minimizing or eliminating family and religion from it weakens societies. The family is the core of the society, and it weakens societies. The destruction of the family and sanctity of life. It's about caring for people, and if we destroy that, then we don't have the. I just wrote a little bit. Weakening societies. We lose our moral compass if we don't have that. And we talked about how society, how like even right now, like Social Security isn't able to help out people that are needing it, because we used to have like 50 workers per one worker that retired, and now it's like we only have 3 workers to one retiree. Based on a sacred duty, what do you think you can do about it? Does the author implicitly or explicitly make realistic suggestions for ordinary citizens as well as those in a position of power and influence? We thought and what policies are. I think the greatest thing that we decided was that we needed to know what was in the proclamation to the family, and we needed to keep that in our hearts because it was truth. We need to support groups like the Families International, monetary or through helping them with educating others. We need to advocate for family by talking to our congressmen, and how it's become easier now with the computer and email, and let's see here, to put pressure on our leaders to enact pro-family laws. We also need to know knowledge to back up what we believe, not just religious reasons why, but also knowledge about this. And working and having all religions work together for the commonality of the family. And then how much we need to have in our lives that we need to be living right, so that we can be able to do those things that we need to when we're called upon, and how much we need the Sabbath day. Did you guys want to add anything else?
I think that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I agree.
All right.
Okay, so I guess that's it, and we'll meet next week. Yeah. So I just a side note, I told my internship that I'm really not available till 11, and they were okay with that. So we're okay to still meet at 10. I think it'll work out. So thanks for being willing, but I think we'll just keep going.
So your internship, where are you interning at? Actually, I'll have you log off. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.